all the way from before the Clone Wars even kicked off to the various battlefields of the galaxy, and even to the dying days of the war, Jar Jar Binks was known as the clumsy and reckless representative from Naboo, making mistakes wherever he went. Jar Jar served as a diplomat on many planets and met with various leaders, but ultimately he was known across the galaxy as the one who gave Chancellor Palpatine the emergency powers necessary to end the Republic. But what happened to Jar Jar Binks after the Clone Wars ended and Order 66? Let's find out. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the channel for a whole lot more content just like this. In the very final stages of the war after the Battle of Coruscant and the rescue of Chancellor Palpatine from Grievous' ship, Jar Jar immediately made a very dangerous and horrifying decision, but he didn't yet know it. Binks joined a group of politicians and senators to present Palpatine with a document known as the Petition of 2000. This document was drafted only days earlier by a group of senators called the Delegation of 2000 and demanded that since the war was nearing its end, Palpatine should give up his emergency powers, which were originally proposed by Jar Jar Binks himself, and immediately abolish the position of Moff, which Palpatine had just brought back after hundreds of years of being out of use. As you can imagine, being a member of this Delegation of 2000 was ridiculously dangerous for these senators, even though they didn't know it, as they were basically just handing a kill list to Palpatine so that he could start eliminating all of his enemies one by one once he transitioned the Republic to the Galactic Empire. Pretty much all of the members of the Delegation of 2000 were staunchly against continuing the war any longer, and most feared for the future of democracy in the Republic, which of course they were correct. On this list were many famous names including Padme Amidala, who died during the birth of Luke and Leia, Bail Organa, who continued on to become a prominent rebel leader, Mon Mothma, who did the same, Mina Tills, who was captured and detained, and also Niava, who was executed by Palpatine for being on the list. After the creation of the Galactic Empire and the imprisonment and execution of many people on the list, almost half of the senators on it removed their names in fear of retribution from Palpatine, possibly including Jar Jar Binks. And as we get further into his story, you'll see why this is the case. Now following this, a huge invasion of the planet Mon Cala took place, led by Wilhuff Tarkin and Darth Vader, with the aim of capturing King Li Char and subjugating his planet to the will of the Empire. On the planet, however, was a hiding Jedi Padawan who managed to escape Order 66 along with a fellow group of survivors, who he in turn made his students. This surviving Jedi Padawan was named Ferren Bar, and despite his young age, he was a ruthless and dedicated teacher, desperate to keep the Jedi Order and its teachings preserved for many years to come. During Vader's invasion of the planet, he eventually found the location of this rogue Jedi Padawan and sent a team of Inquisitors along with clone Purge Troopers to eliminate him immediately. Unfortunately for the Inquisitors, however, Ferren Bar pulled an incredible trick from up his sleeve and used a Jedi mind trick to force the clone Purge Troopers to turn on their own Inquisitors and execute Order 66 on them. So if you want to see exactly how that went down, make sure you check the card on screen now or the link in the pinned comment down below. Either way, around this time, Ferren Bar ordered his R1 series astromech to pull up a holographic list of all of the information he had collected during his time in hiding from the Empire after Order 66. Shockingly, on the list were the names Darth Plagueis and Jar Jar Binks directly above it. This list, containing both the name of Sidious's master and Jar Jar Binks right next to each other, has never been fully explained, but it's certainly very suspicious and calls Jar Jar's true role into question, if you know what I'm saying. So let me know in the comments down below if you have any ideas on what this could mean, and I'm pretty sure I know what you're all going to say. Now after this, Jar Jar Binks was forced to go into hiding in an unknown but highly secure location for a short period of time during the original trilogy and the Galactic Civil War, because his face was simply too infamous across the galaxy for being the man who gave Palpatine emergency powers and indirectly created the Empire as a result. Jar Jar knew that he needed to wait for things to cool down and for his face to hopefully fade from public memory. Unfortunately, he was also exiled from the sparse Gungan underwater cities by his leaders because he was considered a disgrace to his people for having a part in the creation of the Galactic Empire and helping Palpatine to put his iron fist down on the galaxy. After things began to simmer down, Jar Jar was able to return to a semi-normal life, but he was sadly left to live on the streets of Naboo with no friends and no respect from anyone, fighting for scraps among the other street dwellers on Naboo. Following this, Jar Jar's story gets much darker and much sadder. After the Battle of Endor came to an end and the Rebel Alliance came out victorious, Jar Jar became a street performer on Naboo, where he dressed up as a clown and tried to entertain anyone who passed by, hoping that they would drop a few credits his way to keep him alive and able to buy food. Jar Jar was incredibly popular with the children of Naboo, including in the capital Theed, and would often make them laugh and bring joy to their day. On the other hand, however, the parents of these kids absolutely despised him, because although memories of him were fading, the older parents could never forget how he helped Palpatine to destroy the Republic and eventually replace it with the Empire. In the end, that one simple decision deeply affected Jar Jar's later life, and he had no idea just how bad it would turn out. During his time on the street, Jar Jar entertained the children of Naboo by performing tricks with his tongue, juggling glombo shells, and spitting fish into the air before catching them, and sometimes accidentally choking on them. He would also sometimes swallow and flush water out through his ears, but eventually even those tricks began to get old among the children. Throughout this, Jar Jar was still an outcast among regular citizens and really had no hope left in his life except for performing tricks. Things began to turn around for Jar Jar, however, when a young boy named Marpo met him as he was performing in the capital of Naboo, Theed. The young boy was a member of the local orphanage in a nearby town and was just happy to have a day walking about in the capital. As the boy walked up to Binks, he noticed bright red burn marks covering his sickly body, which came as a result of being badly scarred in an Imperial fire raid on his house in the Mid-Rim. Because of his absolutely hideous burns, no other children on Naboo were ever willing to talk to him, and even more sadly, no parents were willing to adopt him, calling him a monster. After listening to his tragic story, Jar Jar performed some of his best tricks for the boy, asking about his life story and where he came from. The boy then told the story about his family and the fire raid incident, which managed to make the Gungans shed a tear. Jar Jar was able to relate to this boy because they were both exiled and despised by their own communities. Binks even revealed to the boy that he himself was an outcast from Gungan society because many of them believed he had helped the Empire to be created, which he technically did, although Jar Jar never mentioned that. Marpo then opened up to Jar Jar, telling him that every single person on Naboo knew who the Gungan was, and that every single person blamed him solely for Palpatine's rise to power, except himself. All of the others at the orphanage, the teachers, the shopkeepers, absolutely everyone blamed Jar Jar, but after speaking to Jar Jar personally, Marpo knew it wasn't his fault. Marpo then even urged Jar Jar to never give up on doing what he loved, urging him to push forward because bigger and better things were sure to come for him. And that's truly a beautiful moment between Jar Jar and the young boy. At this point, Jar Jar was emotionally touched and chose to adopt the young boy when nobody else would, and even promised to teach Marpo to become a clown just like him. Jar Jar made the young boy his official clown apprentice, vowing to teach him the ways of clownery, or the dark side. I'll let you guys decide on that one. After taking his new clown apprentice, Jar Jar's name quickly spread across the galaxy once more, and for some reason a rumor began to spread like wildfire that Jar Jar was actually the same person as Darth Vader. And I'm sure some of you guys in the comments will have some jokes to make about that, so I want to hear them down below. Many years after the death of Jar Jar Binks, and pretty much every living being in the galaxy, his name was written into the Book of the Wills as a very important historical figure for the Galactic Republic. He was remembered by the Wills as a brave warrior for his people during the Clone Wars, but unfortunately his positive actions were overshadowed by his role in the fall of democracy and the Republic, leading to his exile. Sadly, the Wills deemed Jar Jar to have made more mistakes than good choices, but in the end there were forces bigger than him at play. So that is the story of Jar Jar Binks after the Clone Wars and Order 66. Thanks so much for watching, really hope you enjoyed the video. Cheers guys, hope to see you in the next one.